Assalamu alaikum, third year. Today we are going to continue with the lecture on sexual perversion or the sexual deviations. Now, sexual perversions are certain acts where the motive is sexual, but the action is due to some mental disease. The person is generally suffering from some mental abnormality which results in his behavior, sexually orientated behavior. Here, what happens that the person drives sexual pleasure not from sexual intercourse with another person, but single-handedly from some other actions. These are conditions in which sexual excitement or orgasm is associated with acts or imaginary which are considered unusual, abnormal, or deviant within the culture. Paraphilia is the other name. Sexual perversions or sexual deviations were previously known as paraphilia. It is the experience of intense sexual arousal to atypical objects or situations or fantasies, behaviors, or individuals. Such attraction may be known as sexual fetishism. It is a sexual fixation on a non-living object or non-genital body part. ये हमने कल कर लिया था. अब हम थोड़ा सा आगे चले जाते हैं जिसमें the most common paraphilias they are described in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. These are actually the result of certain mental disorders. Sometimes physical disorders may also be present. They are labeled as sadism, masochism, transvestite, fetishism, voyeurism, exhibitionism, again fetishism. This is not transvestite. Proterism and pedophilia. Now, the sadism is the person gets sexual gratification by infliction of pain or physical cruelty like beating, biting, ripping, cigarette burns, or ill-treating a partner. Multiple injuries are inflicted on the body parts, but breast and the external genitalia are generally selected. In extreme cases, even murder is committed, which is known as lust murder. This perversion is common in the males, and the name has been derived from the French writer Marquis de Sade, who regarded sexually deviant actions as being natural and which was apparent both in his writing and in his actions. He was a writer. He used to write pornographic books in which his characters they were practicing this sadism. His life consisted of numerous acts of extremely violent physical and sexual abuse. Most of his victims were female prostitutes and the male and female employees of his estate, and he used to beat them or cruelly treat them, even murder them. He wrote pornographic and erotic books in which the characters enjoying being cruel to the human beings. Then lust murder is a homicide in which the offender stabs or pierces or slashes or otherwise mutilates the sexual organs or the areas of victim's body. With torturing the partner, sexual arousal starts. With the death of the partner, full gratification is obtained. Mutilation of the victim may include evisceration, that is, removal of the viscera from the body, or displacement of the genitalia. After murder, the sadist may have sexual intercourse with the dead victim. It is known as necrophilia. And he may tear out the genitalia or other organs, may suck or lick the wounds, or eat the flesh of the victim to derive sexual pleasure. It is known as necrophagia. These things they do occur, but they are the result of certain mental disorders. Lust murder is the consequence of extreme sadist practice. Lust murder begins with the obsessive compulsions of the offender. Generally, they have a sexual obsession with their victim, and organized lust murder may stalk. These murderers may stalk their victims for months or weeks before the actual killing. So first they fix their sexual obsession on a particular person, then they follow that person, stalks that person for a long time, and then they actually kill. The signature component of the crime, that which name that is a lust murder, is that the killer acting out their fantasies with their victim and the bodies of their victims. Now, the opposite to sadism is masochism. Sexual gratification is obtained only when they receive painful stimuli from the opposite partner. It is the reverse of sadism, and it is more commonly seen in the males. This term is derived from the 19th century author Leopold von Sacher-Masoch, an Austrian novelist who portrayed his principal male character suffering from this perversion. His history appeared to parallel his relationship with his wife, as he used to treat him as a slave and whip him, and his eccentric requests gradually became more demeaning to satisfy his sexual appetite. These people may not be having any sexual intercourse, but they may be getting their gratification or pleasure through these abnormal practices. Masochistic asphyxial deaths may occur due to accidental hanging or strangulation. So the extreme form of this practice is autoerotic death. Sadism and masochism are generally found in combination with each other. Rarely they may be present in pure states, but generally they are present in a combined entity which is known as sadomasochism. When they are found together with one type dominant over the other, the combination is known as bondage. It is found in all age groups and among all the socio-economic strata. These acts of cruelty may completely substitute the sexual intercourse. So the person may not be having any sexual intercourse with the partner, but may be enjoying inflicting the pain or receiving the pain. So the sexual intercourse may be replaced by these acts of cruelty only. Now, I just want to say one thing, that this masochistic attitude is very apparent in our Urdu ghazal, where every shair wants that the Mehboob should kill him. Transvestic fetishism or onanism, it is a disorder characterized by the recurrent, intense, and sexually arousing fantasies, sexual urges, or behavior involving cross-dressing. The sexual gratification is obtained by wearing the dress of the opposite sex without any sexual intercourse. It is just the wearing or even seeing the dress of the opposite sex that gives sexual pleasure to a person. In contrast, transsexuals transsexuals are another class. They wear clothes of other sex because they feel themselves to belong to the other sex and not for sexual excitement. In our society, transvestites are quite common, and we can see them, but usually they are male people and they dress as female, and then they are roaming about on the roads, in the streets. They act as male prostitutes. This disorder is usually seen in the male. They collect items of distinct feminine look and feel, like nightgowns, slips, bras, lingerie, stockings, pantyhose, and many may dress in these feminine garments and take photograph of themselves by living out their secret fantasies. So they, being male, they are dressing in the female garments and particularly the undergarments, and at that time they may be visualizing themselves as a female, and this practice that give them sexual gratification and satisfaction. Magnus Hirschfeld coined the term transvestism. Trans means cross, or vestis, it means breast, to refer to the sexual interest in cross dressing. The term has undergone several changes of the meaning since it was first coined. Hirschfeld's group of transvestites consisted of both male and females with heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and asexual orientation. Ionism is derived from the French men who practiced this perversion. Voyeurism is known as peeping Tom. This is a morbid desire of individuals to observe unsuspecting people, either being undressed or naked or taking bath, see the genitalia or watch the intercourse being practiced by other couples to get erotic excitement and sexual gratification. The person himself is not doing any sexual intercourse with any person. He is just deriving the gratification from visualizing other people who are undressed or who are naked or who are taking bath, or when they see the genitalia or watch another couple indulging in the sexual intercourse. It is commonly seen in the male and voyeurs, that is, observer or the person who is seeing, frequently peeps into the bedrooms of the other people, and therefore they are called as peeping toms. Some voyeurs prefer to observe their own wives being seduced by other men. So this is the extreme form. So they ask somebody else to have sexual intercourse with with their own wives, and then they look on. The act of observation may be accompanied by exhibitionism or masturbation. We will be coming on to exhibitionism also. It occurs in case of sociopathic personality disorder, and such individuals may commit sexual crimes. Psychoanalysis postulates that the voyeurism may be attributed to a child witnessing episodes of his or her parents engaged in sexual intercourse. This is very common observation that if a child before the puberty witnesses the adults engaged in sexual intercourse may have these mental disorders and may become voyeurist. In the UK, non-consensual voyeurism is a criminal offence. In the US, video voyeurism is criminalized in many states. So, in certain countries where these practices are very common, they have formulated laws where these practices are declared as criminal. So, this may be with the naked eye or this may be on a video. Exhibitionism is a desire and intentional exposure of genitalia in a public place, in the presence of other person, mostly in front of the unsuspecting children or the female, to obtain a sexual pleasure. The person may be having certain mental disorders, may be an addict, may be unable to have normal sexual intercourse. So that person may be exposing himself. I have seen it with my own eyes. Persons who are sitting in front of the school, boys' school, and exposing themselves to the little boys. Similarly, I have seen certain people who are present who are sitting in a corner where they know that the females they are passing by and they are exposing to them. I've seen it. This is very common in our society also. This perversion is mostly seen in males, and it is these males they are known as flashers because they are flashing their external genitalia in front of the other person. Occasionally, women may expose themselves in the public, but it is very rare. Most of these people are psychopathic or suffer from the compulsive neurosis. Narcissism is the extreme form of self-admiration. It is also believed to contribute to exhibitionism. If there are certain people who are all the time looking at their self in the mirror and admiring their own beauty. So this is also considered as a form of exhibitionism. Prostitutionism, obtaining sexual arousal and gratification by rubbing one's genitalia against a non-consenting person in a public place. This is really very common. It is usually seen in male and it occurs in the crowded trains or buses or elevator or at bicycle stands where people bend over for unlocking the locks of the bicycle. So wherever there are large number of people present in a tight space, these people they may be rubbing their genitalia or other parts of the body against the genital area of another non-consenting person in the public. It is prevalent in Japan where it is known as chikan and is regarded as a public safety problem. And fondling or groping the victim may be part of the condition. It is called toucherism, that is touching a person, unsuspecting and unwilling person. So that may be present. These are quite common in our society also. Pedophilia is also another condition. It is the recurrent and intense sexual fantasies, urges or behaviors involving sexual activity with a prepubescent child or children. The child may be less than 13 years of age. It is done by a person who is an adult who is 16 years or more than 16 years old, and there should be at least a 5 years distancing in the age of both of them. The child should be of smaller age, and the offender should be at least 5 years older than the child. Pedophiles, they are men. Usually, they can be attracted either to a female child or to a male child, or both sexes. The typical activities vary from just looking at the child, undressing and fondling, to act like oral genital contact, rubbing the penis between the orifices or thighs, or actual penetration. Usually, the child is not able to understand the nature and consequences of the act, and the perpetrator is influential. He is an elder person having parental or other position of authority with respect to the child. Incest may be present. Incest is sexual contact, sexual intercourse with two people who are closely related to each other, where marriage is not permitted, like the father and a daughter, the brother and a sister. So, this pedophilia may be incestuous or it may be non-incestuous. It may be performed by some person who is present in the household, like any distant relative, any person who is present. Many people they have described that a person who has come inside the home, like Ali Sahab or teacher, they may be doing this pedophilic. It is one of the few psychiatric diagnoses for which the symptom behavior constitute a criminal act. So it is a criminal act. In most of the countries, it is considered as a criminal act to molest a child. Masturbation, it is a deliberate self-stimulation which results in sexual arousal. Masturbation is common both in men and women. In males, the methods are mostly manual, that is through their hand. By moving the penis against the bed or some other object, anal stimulation and insertions are rare. They do not insert anything inside the anus. Hollow articles like bottles or test tubes or articles made up of rubber and plastic which stimulate the female genitalia are sometimes used by the females. In female, finger or hand is gently and rhythmically moved over the clitoris of the labia minora. The genitalia may be rubbed against a pillow or a bed or some other object. The female may insert the fingers or a wooden board or test tube or metallic bar, bananas or artificial phallus made up of rubber or plastic into the vagina. This is for physical stimulation. The word onanism was formerly used as a synonym because in the biblical times under Jewish law, a brother was requested to procreate with his brother's widow. Now, it is not like that. It is that in the Bible it says that if a brother has died and does not have any issues and the wife is present, that wife or the widow should be married to the younger brother. Onan of Judah, जैसे कि one of the sons of Hazrat Yaqub, who is known as Yehuda or Judah, he refused When he was betrothed to his brother's widow, he was not consenting for this practice, so he was married against his will. But during sexual intercourse, he did not want to have any child with that woman, so he ejaculated on the ground instead. So he practiced coitus interruptus as a mean of family planning. He did not want any child from that. This is the origin of the term onanism, the sin of onan, which is incorrectly used in place of masturbation. It is not masturbation. Urolagnia, the pervert gets sexual gratification by the sight of the odor of the urine or by urination. Those who enjoy urolagnia may enjoy urinating on another person or being urinated upon. These are rare perversions in New Zealand. Publishing anything promoting or supporting urolagnia, whether in print or online, is punished. But it is not in Pakistan. Punishment of 10 years. Coprophilia is a morbid attraction to and sexual gratification obtained from the feces, like the smell of the feces, the taste or the feel of the feces. Sometimes the person may be eating the feces also. Scatolognia is it involves making obscene phone calls. This is very common in our society. Every person, every female may have experienced this on landlines and on the mobile phone. Partialism is a sexual interest exclusively focused on a particular body part. Clismaphilia is sexual activity involving the animals. This is the stimulation of the ins. Now, in certain countries, there is another crime which is known as indecent assault. Indecent assault is any unwanted sexual behavior or touching of a female without her consent, with the intention or the knowledge to outrage her modesty. उसकी इज्जत खराब करने के लिए. But this is something which is short of sexual intercourse. Male usually do it often to the female or to the adolescents. The meaning of the indecency depends upon the prevailing views of what is unacceptable behavior in that particular society. This can mean many things from an unproven rape to merely touching the buttock in a crowded bus. So indecent assault is a very wide term. It is an attempted rape or just touching the genital area in a public place. Forcing someone to watch pornography or masturbation, disrobing, or compelling a female to get naked in a public place, fondling the breast, thighs, perineum, kissing a woman forcefully, or putting a hand up a woman's skirt constitute indecent assault. These are various actions which have been proven to be in, labeled as indecent assault by the court, and the court has punished the people who have done one of these things in public. So this is some sexual perversions, and now we are going to have another lecture. इसको बंद कर दें। नेक्स्ट मिनट को दिखाते हैं वो बोला हुआ हाँ वो बोल रहा है इसको शट करके दूसरे इसको इसको आप शट कर ये नीचे Now, the next topic is collection, preservation, and dispatch of the material to Punjab Forensic Science Agency Laboratory. Now, the books you have got, they describe as chemical examiners. The chemical examiners laboratory, which was present in the country or in the province, has been abolished, and now a new laboratory, which is named as Forensic Science Agency Laboratory, has been established. It is the head office is present in Lahore, but branches are also present in the other districts. This Forensic Science Agency Laboratory has got many facilities with them, and they have got at least 14. They have got at least 14 sections which perform various duties. Some of them are absolutely new, like the polygraph testing, the forensic photography, examination of the vehicles, examination of the documents. You may be familiar with the term forensic examination of the document, like the report which has been presented to the PM about the scam of the flour and the sugar, and no action has been taken before the forensic examination of the report is to be completed. So that is the examination for the question documents, whether the documents they are original or they have been forged. So when we are doing examination of the living person or the dead bodies as a doctor, there are certain sections of the Punjab Forensic Science Agency laboratory which are more important and which where we frequently have to deal. So first of all, it is the toxicology. Then, actually, first of all, it should be histopathology. Histopathology, toxicology, DNA examination, and ballistic examination. These are the various sections which are very important to a doctor who is doing examination of the person living or dead. So we start from the toxicology. Now, these recommendations are by the laboratory itself. Whatever specimens are required by the laboratory, their amount, their preservation, and their dispatch to the laboratory. This has nothing to do with the things or the methodology which is present in your books, particularly in the Parekh's book. That is a very old book. So, collection, preservation, and dispatch of the material to the toxicology section. It is for the confirmation of poisoning or intoxication. So whenever confirmation of poisoning or intoxication is required, appropriate material should be sent to the toxicology laboratory of the tagged area. So because some laboratories are also present in the district, so if it is in an area like suppose Multan, so they have got a laboratory over there. From the living, the following specimens may be collected for toxicological analysis in case of suspected poisoning. Now, mind you that if it is a case of suspected poisoning, you have to have these specimens taken, sent to the laboratory, and their report attached with the final report. Otherwise, the court is going to ask, why have you not had this toxicological report? Now, from the living person, we are to take the blood from a peripheral vein in a vacutainer. It is never in a syringe, never in a bottle. It is in a vacutainer containing 1% sodium chloride. 1% sodium chloride, the amount may be 5 to 10 cc without spirit being used on the skin. Because most of the cases, the blood is taken for the estimation of alcohol content in it. That's why we are not going to use spirit during the drawing of the blood. Vacutainer is generally 3 cc in its capacity, so we may be able to take 3 cc blood. And it contains sodium fluoride in it and also oxalate as an anticoagulant, sodium fluoride as a preservative. Unpreserved blood should never be sent. And because the blood should be fluid, that's why citrate is also added in it. Then from the living person, urine, which may be up to 30 cc in a glass bottle, clean, chemically clean glass bottle, stool 15 to 30 grams in rectified spirit, because there may be certain seeds present in the stool. Stomach wash, all available, the first wash, all available up to 30 to 50 cc in a glass bottle. The first washing without any antidote or preservative being added to it should be taken. Nails clipping or hair in a clean glass tube or paper envelope. These things they should be taken. From the dead body, the specimens of viscera organs of the body fluids should be collected in routine. Now, this is the recommendation of the Punjab Forensic Science Agency Laboratory, that they say that from the dead body, from the post-mortem toxicology specimen, first of all, blood from the heart, the left chamber and the right chamber of the left ventricle and the right ventricle. It is taken in an amount 50 to 100 cc in a plastic or glass container in which sodium chloride is present as a preservative and potassium oxalate as an anticoagulant. Seal the lid of the cap with an evidence tape so that it may not be removed and no tampering can be done. Sign. The doctor collecting this specimen should sign across the seal. Peripheral blood, which may be taken from the femoral veins, amount may be 10 to 20 cc in a plastic or glass container with sodium chloride as a preservative and potassium oxalate as an anticoagulant. Seal the lid of the cap with an evidence tape and sign across the seal. Then urine, all available, which may be up to 100 mils in a plastic or glass container, and no preservative is to be added. They have said that no preservative should be added to it. The bottle, the lid or the cap of the bottle should be fitted tightly. It should be wrapped with an evidence tape and it should be signed across the seal. Then vitreous humor may be taken, all available in a plastic or glass container. Generally, it is 1 to 2 cc from 1 and no preservative is to be added. And similarly, as in the previous specimens, the lid or the cap of the bottle should be covered with the evidence tape and the doctor should sign across the seal. Other specimens, if the blood and urine are not available, these are not routine specimens, but if suppose the blood is not available, urine is not available, then instead of that what we can take, we take brain 100 gram in plastic or glass container. The laboratory has not asked for any preservative to be used. You can see that 100 gram of brain in a plastic or glass container. Seal the lid or the cap with an evidence tape and sign across the seal. Liver 100 gram in plastic or glass container. No preservative is mentioned. Bile, all available in a plastic or glass container, or it may be that we take the liver as well as the gallbladder, both of them in the same specimen. No preservative is to be used for bile. CSF may be taken, all available, which may be up to 10 to 15 cc, but CSF may be taken only within the first 24 hours after death. So all the CSF which is available, that may be taken in a plastic or glass container and no preservative is to be added to it. Similarly, the gastric contents which are present, all available. It is not the stomach, it is only the gastric contents, all available or up to 100 grams. Record the total amount which was present in the stomach and take up to 100 grams. Measure करके लेना होता है. Then from the crime scene, samples like if the police has been to the crime scene, or if you find something like the drugs, if certain drugs are present in the pockets or on the clothes, these drugs, they should also be submitted for examination. Drug paraphernalia, like if a person is using the drug, we may find that there is a glass present which contains some fluid. It may be alcohol, it may be water, it may be anything. So that fluid and the glass should be taken. If there are any syringes or any needles present, these things should also be collected and sent for examination. Cups, bottles, suspicious household products, these should be collected and they should be sealed and sent to the laboratory, because some of the things may be the cause of intoxication. It may be the kerosene oil or it may be a bleach. So if the bottle is found at that place, that should be collected and shall be sent to the laboratory. Hair, in certain cases, not in every case, in certain cases, hair should be taken. It is generally present in the case of, it is generally taken in the case of chronic metal poisoning. Most commonly, it is the alcohol. So hair, all available. Generally, we take the hair from the scalp, all available. Or if we have to take, it should be at least 50 grams. जितने भी हो सकते हैं उतने लें. Now, collect toxicology samples as soon as possible after the offense in case of death before embalming. There are certain places where the dead bodies are embalmed in routine. So, before the embalming, the samples are to be taken, pack the specimen in well-sealed, leak-proof containers. All the samples must be collected in separate containers. जैसे previous practice थी, liver, spleen, kidney एक ही कंटेनर में डालना. I've seen with my own eyes. लेबोरेटरी वाले लोग जो है ना पैर से उसको टिक लगा के कहा we discard. So any samples which are collected, they should be put in separate containers. For most specimens, disposable hard plastic or glass tubes are recommended. Blood tubes should be sealed and kept cold but do not freeze. Never expose the specimens to hot temperature, because if the temperature is hot, putrefaction may occur. For a valid chain of custody, you may remember the chain of custody. It is who has collected the specimen, where it has remain, and then to whom it has been delivered. For a valid chain of custody, all the items of evidential value must be labeled with the following information: name of the victim, case number, it may be the medical legal examination case number or the post-mortem examination case number, type of specimen, blood, urine, CSF, whatever you have collected, site of collection from, like the femoral artery, from the heart, from the scalp hair, whatever it is. Amount of the specimen, 10 cc, 5 cc, 20 cc, 30 cc, time and collection, name of the medical examiner or the person collecting the sample. In our country, it is the doctor who is collecting the sample from the body, but there may be certain things which may be found at the site, like the bottle, like an empty. So the name of the person who is collecting the sample. Finally, tamper-resistant tape with the collector's initial and the date of collection should be placed over the specimen lid and container to document the specimen's integrity. All the samples collected from a given case may be placed in a temple evident container labeled with the case number and name. Specific specimens may have to be sent in certain suspected poison. Few examples are: suppose if it is a case of snake bite, then we have to take blood 5 to 10 cc from the peripheral vein, and nothing is to be added in it. And we also have to take the tissue, which should contain skin, subcutaneous tissue, and the muscles from the area which is bitten. And no preservative is to be added to these tissues. The specimens should be packed in ice, they should be frozen, because the snake bite venom, it contains albumin. So if we preserve them in sodium chloride or in formalin or in anything, these are going to be lost. If it is a case of corrosis, then we have to take the clothes the person has been wearing, because they will be showing the effect of corrosion, and the washing of the skin from the corroded area without anything being added to it. So it may be containing sodium hydroxide or sulfuric acid. Separate boxes should be used for the specimen from each case. Specimen of no two people should be packed in one box. List of specimen of the article contained in each box should be kept in the respective box. The envelope accompanying the specimen should mention the forwarding letter. The person who is request that I have collected these things and I am sending these things to you for toxicological examination. The police report, copy of the FIR, medical legal or the post-mortem examination report, treatment notes if they are available, and the specimen of C. Specimen collected should be packed and sealed in the presence of the forwarding officers as soon as possible after collection. So once the doctor has collected these things, he should get them packed and sealed in his own direct supervision as early as possible after collection. These specimens should not be left unsupervised or open because tampering can be done. Next, we come to the specimen collection, preservation, and dispatch to histopathology laboratory. Actually, this should be number one because most of the specimens, the most commonly specimens which are sent to the Punjab Science Agency laboratory, these are from the for histopathology. These specimens are sent to the histopathology section of the Punjab Forensic Science Agency laboratory for the following purposes. क्या purpose है? To confirm the presence of pathological processes or diseases in the various system or organs of the body. We have to confirm, like we have to confirm whether the coronary artery they were showing any atheromatous disease or not. To differentiate between antemortem and postmortem injuries. Because the antemortem injuries they are going to show certain vital reactions and the postmortem injuries they will not be showing anything. This is very common in case of bruise and hypostasis. Similarly, fractures, whether it is a traumatic fracture or it is an autolysis where the fragments of the bones they have become separated. In case of bony injuries, X-ray करना भी आसान होता है, बल्कि बेहतर होता है. To confirm pregnancy, if we have a history that the cause of death is an unwanted pregnancy or illegal abortion, so first of all we have to confirm the fact of pregnancy by examination of the endometrial tissues or the examination of the uterus. So are there any changes present in the endometrial tissue? Are there changes present in the uterus? Or is it that the uterus shows presence of chorion or piece of membrane or embryonic tissue? To establish antemortem drowning by the detection of diatoms in the bone marrow, sometimes the dead bodies they are recovered from the water and the putrefaction is present and the sign of antemortem drowning are not present because of putrefaction, then we have to see whether diatoms are present in the bone marrow or not. So for that purpose also we have to do the histopathological examination. Now the specimens or the viscera which are sent to the histopathological examination are, it may be any, but most frequently we are going to send the heart because in most of the cases of death, suspicion that the person may be suffering from heart disease. So we have to send the specimen of heart, then the lungs, because the person may be suffering from disease of the lung, bronchogenic carcinoma, hydrostatic pneumonia, lipid pneumonia, metastasis of the various type of cancers, or there may be thromboembolism. And kidneys, liver, bones, uterus, endometrial tissues, as indicated. So it really depends upon the case. Where you find there that there is naked eye pathology present, we can confirm that by histopathological examination. If not, we are going to take the heart to confirm the presence of coronary artery disease, myocarditis, lungs, because they may contain the embolus. Specimen should be preserved in 10% formalin. For histopathology, the specimen should be preserved in 10% formalin except the bones. Viscera should be immersed completely in the preservative. Packing and transportation should be done in the same manner as for the specimen for toxicological examination. But the difference is that histopathological examination always use 10% formalin. Toxicological examination, no preservation. No preservative are to be used. Or if you want to use, it may be hypertonic sodium chloride solution. Packing and transportation should be done in the similar manner as for the specimen of the toxicological examination, and then appropriate specimen should be collected. Unnecessary sampling should be avoided. Now, one thing is, suppose if you find that the body has undergone autolysis, then histopathological examination cannot be performed. So it should not, the specimen should not be collected. Similarly, if you want to take the specimen of bone for the confirmation of the bony injury, it is better to get the bone x-rayed. So unnecessary sampling should not be done because that will not be giving you any good results, and that is going to cause burden on the laboratory. Now, next is the DNA examination. Collection, preservation, and dispatch of specimen to DNA section of the Punjab Forensic Science Agency laboratory. Sometimes it is also known as the biological laboratory. These specimens, they are collected for the identification of the dead body. You may be knowing that when we compare DNA examination and we compare the fingerprinting, identification from the fingerprinting can be done only if we have got the previous fingerprints. But identification from the DNA examination can be performed even in the absence of DNA record of the person. We can take the DNA of the father, mother, or the siblings, and then we can match them with the DNA of the suspected person, and we can say that he is the offspring or he is the sibling of this person. So the identification from the dead body, the specimens which are to be taken, the rule is that the tissues which are taken, they should not be putrefying, they should be absolutely free from putrefaction. So we may take nails from both the big toes, we may take the teeth, everst, or we may take the hair or bone. From the living person, that we are never going to take any specimen, we are going to hand over the examinee to the police, who is going to take them, the examinee, to the laboratory, where the laboratory personnel, they are going to take the sample under the optimal condition. The best sample is the buccal smear, saliva or the buccal smear. Sometimes they may take the blood also, but generally it is the buccal smear because they contain the cells which have got the nucleus. Blood is not a very good sample because RBCs, they are non-nucleated and the blood may putrefy very rapidly. Specimen may have to be taken from the site of occurrence, like the weapon. It may contain blood or tissue or hair, clothes, bedding, which may show the stains, bedding, which may show the seminal stain or blood. They should be collected, and when these are dispatched to the lab, it should be confirmed that all the specimens are absolutely dry. Nothing wet should be packed. They should be packed in brown paper bag and not in the polythene bag. Swabs from the various body parts, these may also be taken. The swabs are generally taken from any visible bite mark, so it may contain the saliva. Also, in case of sexual offences, the swabs are taken from the vagina, from the anus, from the mouth, as the history may. These swabs, they are dried in air and then they are packed in glass bottles absolutely dry. During collection, preservation, and dispatch of the specimen intended for DNA examination, none of these should be handled with ungloved hands. The person should be wearing gloves. Person should be wearing mask, facial mask, so that the DNA material from the hand, from the person who is collecting or dispatching should not be present on the specimen. There is a ballistic section also present with the Punjab Forensic Science Agency lab, and because the instructions are not given in your books, you should know that the specimens are collected to be sent to the ballistic section of Punjab Forensic Science Agency lab. These specimens are these are for the confirmation that the injury is in fact due to firearm. What was the distance? What was the type of weapon? And whether this bullet or this cartridge has been fired from a particular gun, if the gun has been found. Now, for the ballistic laboratory or for the firearm examination, following specimen may be collected and sent to the laboratory. First of all, the clothes which are worn. The clothes which were worn by the victim showing the hole of the gunshot residues. The clothes may be sent to many laboratories depending upon the finding. So it's not that the clothes will be sent only to the toxicology laboratory or to the DNA laboratory, but the clothes may be sent to the to the ballistic laboratory if they are showing holes through which the bullet has passed or the gunshot residue. The gunshot residue includes the effect of flame burns, any smoke or unburnt powder particles. Then the bullets or the fragments of the bullet which may have been found or the separated jackets of the bullet which are removed from the body of the victim. If these things are found in the body of the victim during the post-mortem examination, these are collected. It may be a full bullet, complete. It may be a fragmented bullet, or the jacket of the bullet may have been separated. All these things they are collected and they are sent for examination. In case of smooth bore weapon, the pellets are connected and at least 15 to 20 pellets in number should be collected. Other components of the cartridge like the cards, the bags or the plastic basket, if they are found inside the body of the victim, they are also removed and they are sent for examination. Any of the metallic objects, anything which is intended for ballistic examination, any metallic object, any bullet, jacket, fragments of the bullet should not be handled with the forceps. We are not to touch them with the forceps. We are not to place them on any hard surface or metallic surface. We should avoid making any scratch, any marks upon them. Then, if these are removed from inside the body of the victim, they should never be washed. They should never be washed either with water or with alcohol or ether. If there is any tissue present, blood present, that should be present like that. It should be sent as such. These should be packed in cotton wool. The bullet or the pieces of the bullet, they should be wrapped completely in the cotton wool. If the cotton wool is not present, then we should use tissue paper, a few layers of the tissue paper, and we should be dispatching them to the laboratory in a cardboard box, never in a metal box or in a glass bottle, so that there should not be any extra markings present on it which hinder the comparative work. Because sometimes what happens that the weapon is also apprehended by the police and the weapon is sent to the laboratory and then they test fire. And then that test fired bullet and the bullet which has been removed from the body of the victim, both of them we are compared. If we have not taken any precaution, then the bullet which has been recovered from the body of the victim may be having certain additional findings, additional scratch marks, which may hinder the result. So this is the collection, preservation and dispatch of the specimens to the ballistic section of the Punjab Forensic Science Laboratory. Now these Punjab Forensic Science Agency Laboratory, they have circulated certain books, booklets or guidelines for the collection and preservation and dispatch of specimens to various sections of their laboratory. Their recommendations, their demands, it may be different, entirely different from the one which are previously given in your books, which were used for the chemical examiner's laboratory. So we should not. Another thing is that the Forensic Science Agency laboratory, they have got sophisticated methodology, and they are using those methodologies for the detection of the, particularly the toxicology laboratory. So it is not that the working of the laboratory is the same as that was in the chemical examiner laboratory. They use most commonly, they use less chromatography and mass spectrometry, GCMS. So, whenever you are asked for the collection of the specimen, it is the Forensic Science Agency laboratory, and the collection, their amount, their preservation, their dispatch is according to the guidelines which are being provided by the laboratory and not by whatever is written in your books. Like they say, collect too much rather than too little. The Forensic Science Agency what to say that only appropriate specimen should be collected. Never pack more than one specimen in one container. Previously, it was that liver, kidney, and spleen, it was packed in one meter. Another thing is that stomach is taken, the intestine is taken here, only the stomach contents are taken, not the organ or the intestine that is similarly, never send unpreserved blood or blood in a syringe or in a bottle to the laboratory because there is going to be putrefaction in that unpreserved blood. And when this blood is examined, the post-mortem alcohol level may be raised because during post-mortem changes there may be fermentation of the carbohydrates which are present, and this may lead to a false positive result of alcohol in the blood. Unpreserved blood should never be sent. So this finishes the lecture today. The specimen collection, preservation, and dispatch. There are other sections of Forensic Science Agency laboratory, but the doctors, they are generally concerned with these four, that is histopathology, toxicology, biology or DNA, and ballistic examination. These are more commonly the things which a doctor has to know. Thank you very much.